McConnell standing firm, saying that, look, the accuser, Debbie Ramirez, the second accuser, no evidence. The witnesses that were supplied to the New Yorker and the New York Times, they didn't exist. They said they weren't there, couldn't recall it, never saw them, didn't know anything about it. And then Debbie Ramirez's best friend in high school saying, well, she never said anything about that to me, so I don't know what she's talking about. I mean, this thing is just completely unraveled. Now we got Michael Avenatti saying, oh, wait a minute, I got a third one who's coming out, and that'll be that, he said. Also, Avenatti running for president based on chasing ambulance or something. It's a bizarre world that we live in right now, I can tell you that. But joining us now to try to straighten this whole thing out, bring some sense to it, is Liz Peek. We had to wake her up early today because she was up very late last evening, we understand, so we appreciate it. She just did a column for The Hill, which is a must-read. As soon as I saw it, I texted her and said, oh, you have to come on today. You can follow Liz Peek on Twitter, @LizPeek, and her column in The Hill entitled Kavanaugh Confirmation Chaos. Liberals, especially liberal women, should be careful what they wish for. Liz Peek joining us now. Great to have you, Liz.
Good morning. I'm happy to be up, awake, and coherent.
And ready to roll with that cup of joe, right?
That's
Good
exactly
to have you
right.
with us.
I was giving a speech last night to an association of retired intelligence officers. Come to find out, that's a pretty right-leaning group, so that was kind of interesting. But, yeah, I mean, I think this Kavanaugh thing has descended into farce, except that there are real people who are being damaged by it, and in particular, of course, Judge Kavanaugh and his family. And you know what, John? I think Americans generally are fair-minded people. I think they really don't like this kind of smear campaign that's going on, and I'm glad to see Republicans fight back. There was a new poll out this morning, or maybe yesterday, from Gallup showing Republican approval ratings up substantially, actually for the highest it's been in quite a long time. I really think if Republicans stick together and put Kavanaugh on the bench, those numbers will go even higher. I think this has become a litmus test for the Republican Party, and I sure as heck hope that Mitch McConnell, who has prioritized putting judges on the bench, not just the Supreme Court, but of course lower courts as well, follows through with his real determined speech, because I thought it was great.
Well, his speech was maybe one of the best he's ever given, because he's not known for this. He doesn't go on the floor and make fiery speeches. It's not what he's going to be known for. It's not his legacy, but certainly in this particular one, he did that. But Liz, I think you're onto something. But let's go backwards with these accusers and then get to the point of your column, if we may. So we're going to go backwards. We played a clip just before the top of the hour. Michael Avenatti running for president, I don't know, based on what experience, I guess chasing ambulances or Stormy Daniels or something representing the hooker. But he says he's got a third witness, and it's going to come out Wednesday night just before the hearing, and he says it's going to blow the doors off it. But in the clip, he spent 8 seconds on the woman and 2 minutes and 42 seconds on why Kavanaugh should not be confirmed. So is this really about a victim, or is it just politics?
Michael Avenatti is a total sleaze guy, and basically his entire being has come about. The only reason we've ever heard of him is because he has tagged himself to Stormy Daniels, and he wants to translate representing a porn star who is going after President Trump into being a presidential aspirant. I mean, it is beyond crazy. I actually wrote a column about him some time ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, which in this world is a long time, for Fox. And, you should try and look it up, because it kind of goes through the fact that the guy has been sued by every partner. His businesses have failed. He is truly a despicable human being. So why anyone gives this fellow a platform is beyond me. Does he have a credible charge and witness against Donald Trump? I doubt it, because I think the landscape has been scoured for people who have something negative to say about Kavanaugh. But let's talk about the people who have come forward. My view is, and I think the view of fair-minded people is, you have two completely uncorroborated, unsubstantiated charges against a man who has had a lifetime of winning friends and developing a very fine reputation, and particularly as it pertains to women. Even liberal women have come out in support of Kavanaugh because he has promoted more to the bench. He has been more supportive of women in legal circles than almost anybody else today. So I think we have to give him something, the benefit of the doubt, because all of these charges have completely no foundation. As somebody said, the New Yorker article with this most recent accuser talking about a drunken party at Yale where she too was drunk, it has no scaffolding. There's no one who can corroborate it. So, look, you know what? I think at this point we've heard all there is to hear. I think the hearing is going to be a nightmare of showboating, as were the original hearings with people like Cory Booker making a complete idiot of himself. And it's going to be horrendous for everyone involved, including Christine Blasey Ford and Kavanaugh. So, there's talk now that she won't show. If that's the case, I hope that Republicans take a vote and they put this man on the Supreme Court.
Where did you hear that she might not show? When did that?
It's up on Drudge today. I saw it somewhere else too. I don't know what the reasoning is.
So now she might not. She might not appear, but she sent a letter to the Judiciary Committee saying that she would appear, but that she was concerned about her safety. One thing I pointed out earlier, Liz, and look, I don't want to criticize Dr. Ford in any way. I'm sure she's gone through a lot with this whole ordeal, and she's got her own reasons. Maybe it happened. I don't even want to go there. But you have to give the facts. And one of the things she said about delaying this further was that she doesn't like to fly. And she said, well, I don't like to fly. Her lawyer said, Dr. Ford doesn't like to fly because when you fly, you're in a cabin or you're in a small space that you can't get out of, and it reminds her of the assault, and so she can't fly. Yet we find out that she visited her family in Maryland 3 times in 2018. That's a 5-day drive from San Francisco. And we also find out that she did graduate work in Hawaii. Good for her. Maybe she took a canoe
there.
there.
Hard to drive to Hawaii? Is that your contention?
I think that, look, it's nonsense. If you want to come and testify and you have a story to tell, tell it.
Exactly.
But when you start throwing out things like, it has to be delayed because I don't like to fly, and I don't like to fly because of the assault from Kavanaugh, it makes me remind me of that, but yet you're flying all over the world. I don't know. Maybe it's me, but it doesn't sound credible.
It certainly depresses whatever credibility the woman has. And, I think something happened to her. I suspect that that's right. But here's the thing. You can't make unsubstantiated charges against somebody. And I think the other thing that's sort of a data point on how credible all this is all the coaching that is now going on.
Right.
Apparently, they are prepping her, and I'm sure, by the way, Kavanaugh is getting prepped, too, on how to handle these questions. But if she's really just telling a story, just tell the story. Tell what happened to her, deflect any questions that undermine your credibility or whatever. But it seems to me this should not be high art. You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's sincere, she'll come across as sincere. And, I am sure Republicans are going to be treating this woman with kid gloves because, heaven forbid, they sully their already dim reputation for how they handle women by being hard on her. And yet someone will ask some questions, and if she's being honest, she should just answer them.
Liz, in your column yesterday, you talk about that this could actually backfire on the Me Too movement. Explain.
Well, look, I think most Americans are pretty fair-minded, and I don't think that the Me Too movement does itself any good by going after people in this way that is, to many people, looks unfair. And I think we have not, in this country, historically used, thank God, race, gender, or religion to determine someone's guilt or innocence. When you have people like Senator Hirono or Kristen Gillibrand saying, I believe her because she's a woman, and that's basically what they're saying, and I don't believe Kavanaugh because he's a man, I think that strikes a really discordant chord with most Americans. The Me Too movement is a serious thing. A lot of women have suffered discrimination. They've suffered sexual harassment. The Me Too movement has uncovered heinous perpetrators of those things, like Harvey Weinstein. But in this case, it is calling on women to rally around someone in order to block a politically important Supreme Court justice. That is what this is about. This is politics. This is not about sexual harassment or about how we treat women. Indeed, as many people have written, as did I, so many women have come forward to support Judge Kavanaugh that you're pretty sure he has treated women pretty well. And, someone who coaches a girl's soccer team or whatever, his daughter's soccer team, I just don't think that that's someone who is really going to be a sexual predator. Nonetheless, it just seems to me that this is really damaging women in a way that these people who march and chase Senator Cruz out of a restaurant and so forth, they don't really understand it. I have talked to young women in the workplace, and this is absolutely the talk around town here in New York, and you'll hear it from other people if you talk to them. Office workers who say, my boss will no longer take me out to lunch to talk about how I'm doing. I'm not invited when the guys go out for drinks after work. I'm no longer invited. Women are being ostracized because men are so worried that a loose comment or an arm around the shoulder will be misconstrued and show up in their workplace the next day, and they will be fired. That's how insane this has become. People are being fired, men, for incredibly small offenses and things that they don't even think are offenses. Bankers are being given training to the extent now, John, where you can't walk in if you're a guy and say to a woman, co-worker, hey, you look terrific today. That is considered out of bounds. So you tell me, is this improving the culture, the workplace culture for women, or not? I would tell you very strongly it is not. And by the way, historically, women have complained that they were shut out of the so-called boys' club, where a lot of business gets done, those after-work events and stuff that the guys all hang around and they talk about stuff and things get actually decided. If women are no longer participating, they have even less shot at the next rung up the ladder. And I tell you what, that is a tragic consequence of all this.
But it's real. It's happening. It's real.
It is absolutely real. Believe me, I know people who are talking. I mean, you'll hear this. And it's not just women. I actually, after that piece came out, which actually was up on Fox opinion page, not The Hill.
I'm sorry.
I got emails from people saying, I hear this all the time from the women I work with. I'm really concerned about this. These people have no idea what they're doing.
Well, it is unfortunate. Things have changed. I mean, in my lifetime as an executive, I don't know how many times I've complimented someone and said, you look very nice today, or you look terrific today, or I love your dress. I mean, but I've said that to guys like, hey, great tie.
I love your dress.
Yeah, I mean, I like your dress, right? I mean, or your whatever you have on. I mean,
I know, I'm kidding.
Right,
of
but
course
I mean,
you have, because that's normal human intercourse. That's the way we talk to each other. Now we're putting all these illogical and sort of illegitimate constraints on how we treat each other, which just if women were concerned historically that they were not, as I say, a member of the club, that men didn't feel comfortable treating them as a workplace comrade, they feel even less comfortable with that now, and that is truly a bad outcome.
Well, when you watch the Oscars, when I watch that with my wife, she doesn't really care about the speeches. She watches it for the people come down the red carpet to see what they have on. I guess you can't do that anymore now either. Maybe they should get rid of the red carpet and just get rid of that, because you can't do that, I guess.
Well,
I don't really know.
People are still interested in clothing and stuff, but this really, I mean, honestly, this is a profound issue, and I hope people take it seriously. I hope that I don't know that there is anyone sort of in charge of the Me Too movement. I'm afraid that people in charge of pro-women movements generally are not really particularly concerned about how all this will affect actual real working women in the workplace. And they're going after, I think, the outliers, the people who are real miscreants and who do sexually harass their coworkers and stuff. I got to tell you, in my career, I've really found very few of those. Generally speaking, I worked with a bunch of men on Wall Street, and they were, by and large, pretty terrific people and quite willing to give me equal space and equal opportunity, etc. This goes on, and that's going to diminish.
So the bottom line is you've got Senator Hirono from Hawaii recently saying, I just want to say to the men of this country, just shut up and step up, do the right thing for a change. You've also, as you mentioned, have Senator Christine Gillibrand, New York, running for president, we assume, basically saying, I believe Dr. Blasey Ford because she's telling the truth. And in your column, you interpret that, in other words, I believe her because I believe her. And then you look at the Debbie Ramirez allegation, and wow, Liz, that thing is really over the top because they could find no witnesses. I mean, the fact that the New Yorker even reported that is beyond the pale. They gave it to the New York Times. They interviewed 8 people. They went 0 for 8 and decided they couldn't run the story because they might get sued. But yet it's out there.
But the problem is today, as we all know, the print media, the mainstream media, is less and less responsible. And, you know, we've seen that for the last 2 years. Any allegations, think of the unsubstantiated reporter daily in the New York Times about the Trump White House. There is a narrative. There's, by the way, the narrative building about Kavanaugh. And Hirono touched on this on State of the Union on Sunday, and I thought it was quite interesting. What they're going to be talking about, you may have seen, they're bringing in experts to talk about teenage drinking. Now it's not just Kavanaugh on trial, it's teenage drinking on trial from 35 years ago. Okay, so whatever. We're going to discover in this harangue about teenage drinking and college-age drinking that people get drunk and they do irresponsible things. Here's the real tragedy, going back to this whole women's movement. It's also women now who are getting drunk. You know, and I'm going to sound like an old fogey here, but there was a time when it really wasn't considered attractive or, frankly, safe for a woman in college to get drunk. Men get drunk, we understand that, but there had to be somebody who kind of was in charge of the situation, and generally speaking, that was females. So now, because of the wonderful equality we have, women are getting drunk just like men, and guess what? You are vulnerable when you're drunk. And the truth is, I am shocked every time somebody makes a comment like that about how women should not get drunk because they can actually get attacked then more easily. It is then portrayed as making women out to be in the wrong. I'm not making women out to be in the wrong, but I'll tell you what, I early on impressed with my daughters the idea that they are responsible for themselves. And if they get into a position where they are that vulnerable, you know what? Bad things can happen. So anyway, I mean, this is a particular peeve of mine because going back, I did a story a couple of years, 3 or 4 years ago, about this whole campus rape conversation. And in the process came across one of the first charges of sexual misbehavior on campus. And I think it was USC. It could have been UCLA, one of the Western colleges, universities. And it involved a woman getting totally drunk with her boyfriend, getting into bed naked. They had sex. He was her boyfriend for 2 more years, and then she sued him for sexual assault, saying that she was drunk, she should never have been in that position of being taken advantage of. That is where that whole campus rape thing started. And to me, it was the most egregious miscarriage of justice. And thank heavens, by the way, and we're going far afield here, but thank heavens that we have overturned the Obama-era guidance on campus sexual assault, how colleges should handle it, because it was set up to totally give women the benefit of the doubt and basically give men no due process whatsoever. Colleges definitely wanted it overturned because they were getting sued right and left and center for ruining young men's lives, not allowing them to face charges against them, and handling these accusations in an incredibly unfair manner. By the way, again, that word unfair really comes to the fore, in my view, and I think it's something people need to be very concerned about.
Thank you for sharing that, Liz. I think you're spot on with that, and I really appreciate your insight and the work that you've done on this particular issue. And thank you for getting up early to be with us, Liz.
You're
I know you
welcome.
were out late last night. You can follow Liz. Go to at Liz Peak. Also, her opinion piece on Fox.com. And I want to give you the title of it because I read it last evening and then texted her immediately to get her on my show. Kavanaugh confirmation chaos. Liberals, especially liberal women, should be careful what they wish for. Liz Peak. And Liz, if you'll tweet that out and tag me on it, I'll retweet it, as it's a great column.
Great,
It's a
thank
must
you.
read.
Thanks, John.